Is your temperament one that leads you to quickly confront someone when you feel a perceived wrong has taken place or they're out of line with Scripture? Or is your temperament more one that prevents you from ever wanting to confront someone when a perceived wrong has taken place or they're out of line with Scripture? For many of us, our answer to that question may simply come because of what we saw modeled for us. So if being quick to confront was modeled for us, then perhaps we do the same. But if confrontation was avoided like the plague, then perhaps we do the same. I would advocate that a much healthier model for discerning whether or not something is a hill to die on or not is a biblical model, no matter what model we saw growing up. So let's turn to Romans 14. This is going to give us a lot of discernment and wisdom in this area. I'm going to read the first 4 verses. Except one whose faith is weak, without quarreling over disputable matters. One person's faith allows them to eat anything, but another whose faith is weak eats only vegetables. The one who eats everything must not treat with contempt the one who does not, and the one who does not eat everything must not judge the one who does, for God has accepted them. Who are you to judge someone else's servant? To their own master, servants stand or fall. And they will stand, for the Lord is able to make them stand. Now, in this context, Paul is describing a situation where one Christian feels it's wrong to eat meat, and perhaps when they do, it violates their conscience. Now, on the other hand, another Christian is perfectly at peace with eating meat, and it doesn't violate their conscience. So in this particular context, what's more important to Paul isn't whether eating meat or not is right or wrong, but rather how we interact with those we disagree with. Even though Paul is persuaded that he can eat meat, he wants to treat his brother or sister in a way that honors them. Now, also in this context, what Paul is advocating for is that we are not quick to call out a brother or sister for eating or not eating meat. And so this is an important question. Now, how do we go about discerning when something necessitates loving confrontation versus when something does not? So one church father said, and maybe you've heard this, in essentials, unity, in non-essentials, liberty, and in all things, charity. Now, at times, a loving thing to do will be to confront someone, and at times, a loving thing to do will not be to confront someone. So there are passages in Scripture that say it is a glory to someone to overlook a sin. And Paul says we are to forbear with one another. In other words, we're to be patient in putting up with things that annoy or irritate us about others. But then there are passages that tell us to confront or to restore, or even in drastic cases, to break fellowship if actions do not change. So when something is an essential, right, or a clear violation of Scripture, we have a loving responsibility to gently go to that person in order to hopefully restore them. In other words, we must love enough to risk the rejection of someone in order to win them in this area. However, if something is non-essential and it's not a clear biblical principle and it's more of a preference, as in Romans 14, then the loving thing to do is not to die on a hill of preferences. So here is an important question asked. This goes more to motive. What is my motive in going to confront someone? Is it to let them have it because I'm angry? Or is it out of love because what I'm saying is for their good and in their best interest? And so here are a few questions to consider as we close. Is there someone in your life you've contemplated confronting? Is it more of a sin issue or is it more of a preference issue? And once you answer that question, I believe it will become clear what the next right steps are.